It's one thing to observe your mind liking something abstractly, let's say, or even in the present moment. I like the trees. The trees I think are pretty. But the trees are not in the context of my sense of necessity for life and limb, let's say. I dislike working out at the gym. I dislike the gym. But I don't have to do that to survive. But then there's other things that are related to surviving in the sense of safety, instinct for survival, which don't seem like something one likes. They seem to be the constituent of being, or a constituent of the continuation of being, and not just seen, they're felt. So the feeling is not a pleasant thought, or is not perceived as a pleasant thought. It is perceived as a chain, literally a holding of the self, of the being, to that which is liked. And that thing is held to the self in a way that if the perception is that that liked thing will not be available, then that is not felt as disliking, it's felt as danger. That this feeling that is here, whatever it is not enough. There's a lack here. We search the feeling for the escape from the perception that not having that which we like will be our demise. That our being will be compromised. And so the sense of lack presents what was something that was liked. It presents in the feeling as need and want. Not even want, it's need. Because people say they need something when it's a thing that makes itself necessary for the continuation of their being. A necessary condition for the continuation of their being. And anything can be taken that way, even if a simple analysis of alternatives can show that that individual particular liked thing could easily be replaced by an alternative, either an alternative thing or just an alternative approach to whatever need that thing was supposed to serve. And so the feeling becomes actually neglected as the source, or not the source, but the landing place for the sense of lack and sense of suffering or dissatisfaction, and it becomes secondary to the concept that that need is real and is really its satisfaction is contingent on particular conditions and not just sort of a whole range of potential solutions. And so there's a closing down of the mind and perception onto particulars, particular conclusions, right? I mean, closing down and conclusion are kind of the same thing, right? I come to a conclusion. I've stopped being open to the possibilities that could equally or sufficiently satisfy the problem or solve the problem, which is the thing that needs to be done for the continuation of being. So to be free of liking and disliking requires more than just objectifying that process. It requires something where you see yourself needing what you like. You see yourself in that feeling of danger, and you see the connection you're making between that feeling of danger or feeling of not being okay, or whatever you want to call that perception of this feeling not being okay, that connection between that and the needed thing, the necessary thing, the liked thing, the thing that went from being liked to being wanted and then needed. And you see that, and you see that as a circumstantial event, not the attitude, but just the presentation of that particular thing in your experience is circumstantial, because, you know, if you're thinking of, well, a car satisfies my need, the fact that you live in a place where there are cars is not your choosing, it's just the circumstances. So if a car is available in your experience because you know what cars are, because you're in a place where cars exist, like Earth, you know, that is circumstantial. So you're seeing that a car is there is circumstantial. Also, the availability to understand what a car could do for you is circumstantial, because you may have seen cars but not had knowledge of what they do. So that's also a matter of circumstance. You may not, you didn't choose necessarily to be educated in the ways of cars. You know, it's just, you were just there when that knowledge was available. But and even the liking can be a physical pleasure, and that in itself is potentially not even a choice, in terms of this animal being has a nervous system which reacts in an involuntary way towards conditions. And so, you know, if you have your body compromised physically, let's say it's damaged, you don't choose certain aspects of how the body will respond to that. And those responses are what you're subjected to. But the seeing of those bodily responses, the perception of those bodily responses, even if it's not like a physical damage to the body, let's say it's something else that your body is evolved and instinctually responsive to, like having enough to eat, let's say. The way you take your body's response, if you recognize yourself in a state of lack, or you see yourself as being able to be satisfied by a response of the body like that, the body responds to having enough food, and you see yourself in that that bodily state, you consider yourself the body that is satisfied with having enough food, then you're also going to consider yourself the body that is responding to not having enough food. And that's going to be felt in a different way. And your cognition knows that there's an understanding, there's a knowledge of the duality of enough food, survival, not enough food, not survival. And there's the cognition of a self that survives and a self that doesn't survive. And that self is able to take up the feelings in having enough food or not having enough food and sense those. When I say feelings here, I mean sensations. Take those sensations and apply them to this survival narrative, construction, requirement, rule, assumption of duty and goodness, normativity, purpose, meaning,